Welcome. Welcome everyone who is here in person. Welcome to everyone who is here online. It is always a treat to get to practice together and to see you taking care of your lives in this way, coming to sit together and to hear the Dhamma and discuss the Dhamma. So our Tuesday, this is called the Tuesday Tune-In, this program, and the format is that we'll do about 25 or 30 minutes of meditation, and I'll give some guidance about that, about how to settle in and what kind of meditation we're going to do this evening. It's a little different each week. And then we'll transition and I'll give a Dhamma talk, some reflection on a topic for about 30 minutes or so, and then there's time for questions, for comments, for any kinds of reflections that other folks want to do. So with that, I think that we'll go ahead and get started with our meditation for this evening. So I want to do something a little different, and I say that often because I like to change it up a bit. And we're going to look at the sense doors, but in a way that's a little bit more free-flowing than usual. But for now, you can just begin to establish your meditation posture. So I like to begin with just a little rocking of the body and of the head. Just loosening up any tendency to lean toward one side or another. Allowing the body to come into a balanced position. And sensing the weight of the body on your seat. Relaxing the belly. And if you're seated on the floor, it's helpful to allow the hips to tilt slightly forward. Just observing the natural stability of the body in this place at this time. And from that stable base, as best you can, allowing the bones of the spine to come into alignment and bring you upright. Feeling that alignment all the way up through the neck. And then with the hands, you can place them flat on the thighs if you want to lower the energy of the body and relax a bit more, or gather them together in your lap. So left hand on the bottom, right hand on the top, and the fingertips touching. It's a way of gathering together the energy of the body. Softening the eyes and relaxing the mouth. Knowing that the bones are carrying the weight of the body, perhaps allowing the muscles of the shoulders and the chest to also relax and widen. And now turning the attention to the mental activity. And just making a note anytime there's a sensation associated with the body. Is it a sensation of touch or a sound, a smell or a taste, or a visual sensation, some kind of light? Just noting any bodily sensations that flit through the mind stream. Staying in the present moment and noticing any bodily sensations that come to mind. A touch or a taste, a smell or a sound, or a visual. And when you notice that the mind has become distracted or no longer in the present, then you're back. You can just return to observing mental sensations. Noticing which ones are associated with the body. Staying curious about mental activity. Just observing bodily sensations that come to mind. And now, in these last few minutes of the meditation, shifting the attention to just one type of bodily sensation. So it's shifting the attention to just the sensations of hearing, resting the mind on the sensations of hearing. coming back again and again to attend to the sensations of hearing. Beautiful. That was our meditation for today. And now, as I mentioned, excuse me, I'm going to go right into the Dhamma talk. So if there are any questions or comments about the meditation, we can take those a little bit later. And I'm going to begin, as I always do, with homage to the Buddha and the Triple Gem. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang Dhammang Sanghang Namasami. Last night, I went for a walk right around dusk. And I was just walking along the neighborhood, the same route that I often go, just walking around the block, basically, in various ways, various blocks around here. And because it was dusk, the shadows were getting deeper. And as I walked along, I started to see fireflies, those wonderful little creatures of summer. And I could really see them well because of the waning light, because the grass is so deep and green right now against the brown of the tree trunks. It was really, really just beautiful. Such a moment of wonder to see the fireflies flitting about. And it got me thinking about the practice, the request of practice, you might say. And part of that request I would propose is this deep receptivity to our lives. And I don't mean inquiry particularly, or any kind of analysis or comparison, but just a receptivity, an openness to our lives. And I suppose that if I think about the typical ways of talking about that within the tradition, within the various traditions of Buddhism, the word mindfulness would come up. Really, that is what we mean by mindfulness. It's profound sense of receptivity to what is present. And because it was a particular visual that in some ways is associated with childhood for me, it also brought up this question of simplicity. How simple the practice could be, how just incredibly clear and direct the practice can be. And it brought up, of course, because this is how my mind thinks, a sutta, one of the old discourses in Pali, that ancient language of India, in which we could say some of the earliest teachings of Buddhism are captured or written down. And in particular is a story about the historical Buddha, the person, North Indian man who lived a long time ago and discovered this path, gave these teachings, how to live in a way that is completely awake and harmonious with truth. And it's a very short sutta that I want to share with you. And despite the fact that it's short, I think it's a very meaningful sutta. So this is from the Connected Discourses, chapter 56, sutta number 31, Samyutta Nikaya is how we would refer to it. The Nikayas are the collections. And Samyutta means connected, or sometimes it's translated as linked. And so this is a story about the Buddha, and he was walking with a group of his students, his fellow practitioners, some of them awake, some of them not. And they were in a grove, a forest of a particular kind of a tree called the Simsapa tree. And the Buddha reached down and he grabbed a handful of leaves. And he asked the folks, he said, well, so now here is this handful of leaves that I have. And he said, are the leaves in the forest more than the leaves in my hand? And they said, well, yes, of course, Venerable. The leaves in the forest are many more than the leaves in your hand. And then he says, and so too, that which I have directly known, this is the Buddha speaking, that which I have directly known but have not expounded to you is more numerous than that which I have expounded. And why? Why not? Why have I not expounded this? Because it's an interesting statement, particularly in light of the fact that the Buddha, even on his deathbed, said, I've given you my all. I spent 45 years walking around India barefoot and talking to anybody who would listen. I've given you my all. There's nothing special for me to reveal at the last moment. And yet here he is saying that there are some things that he has not expounded. But then he says, and why? Why have I not expounded these many things that I've come to know? And the answer is this. He says, because it's not beneficial. And it doesn't pertain to the basis for a spiritual life. It doesn't lead to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to nirvana or nibbana. Therefore, I have not expounded it. So right away, the question that comes to mind, and that I think many people have, particularly folks who are new to Buddhism, but also folks who have been practicing Buddhist for a long time, and then the questions arise later on as things start to unfold. And that's the question of spirituality. What is it that is spiritual about this path? This path that is said to have three main pillars: ethics, silas, the Pali word, and meditation, samadhi, which can also mean specifically concentration, but generally speaking in this form, in this particular constellation of three, it means meditation in general, or cultivation of a clear mind. And wisdom, panya, is the third of the three main pillars, you could say. So what is it that's spiritual about that? So, of course, again, being the geeky mind that I have these days, I went to go look it up. What does Merriam-Webster say? Is spiritual or not spiritual? To give it a Western context for a minute and see what was the meaning of that. And I thought it was very interesting what they had to say. They said spiritual means affecting the spirit. And then you have to wonder, oh, well, what do we mean by spirit in Buddhism? But then they give this other word related to that called incorporeal, things not related to the body. And I thought, oh, yeah, Buddhism has a lot of that, right? We have a lot of teachings and a lot of wisdom around aspects of experience that are not related to the body. And then there is this relating to things that are sacred. So sacred meaning related to a deity. So that's the way I think many Westerners were brought up, and also folks in other parts of the world to think that spirituality has to do with a god or a relationship to a god of some sort. And certainly that is true for many folks, and continues to be true for many folks who are practicing Buddhism. But Buddhism doesn't, I would say the way to frame it would be something like these traditions, generally speaking, again, sort of making a blanket statement about many different traditions that are under the umbrella of Buddhism, doesn't require an appeal or a relationship to a god in order to achieve, you could say, the highest spiritual goal of a human being. And so, but it does relate to sacred matters in this sense, in this other sense that Merriam-Webster gives us, which is entitled to or worthy of reverence and respect. That's another way to think about what's sacred in our lives. What is it that we find to be exalted is the one word that's used sometimes in the Buddhist suttas. And then so then the question for us as individuals is, what is it that is considered sacred in Buddhism? And it is this life, actually. So this is where the definition of wisdom becomes very important, because wisdom, as we understand it, is to know and see things as they truly are. There's a Pali phrase for that I really like, yatha bhuta jnana dassana. Yatha bhuta jnana dassana. It means exactly that. Yatha bhuta means things just like so, things as they are. And jnana is knowing, and dassana is seeing. Both literal seeing and also in terms of seeing with insight. This community, for example, is called Dassanaya Buddhist Community. It's about seeing with insight, seeing the world with insight. So what is it to know and see things as they truly are? It is this life. This is the vehicle that we have for that. This life, that is the vehicle we have for that. So then there is this other shade of meaning, though, which takes the spiritual to mean, in Buddhism, to mean not just what is not associated with the body, but also through this body, knowing that that too is part, knowing that that too is integral to the reality. So this one way of relating to it, I was speaking with a friend recently, and I was saying one way of relating to it is like this. There is only one reality to which each person is trying to wake up, if they are trying to wake up, to which there is only one reality in which we are all living. This is it. This is the one reality. We all have different individual experiences of that, for sure. That is also part of the uniqueness of the path and the reason why each one of us has to practice the path for ourselves. Nobody can do it for you. But within this one reality, there is this life, there is this mind, there is this body. So there cannot be anything that obstructs you from knowing the nature of reality. Because you live in reality, there cannot be anything that obstructs you. Because you live in that self-same reality. My dear, dear friend Blanche Hartman, she was the first abbot of San Francisco Zen Center, the first woman abbot of San Francisco Zen Center, a number of years after Shinryu Suzuki Roshi died. And people would make this mistake of being, well, like, not me, maybe that's true for some folks, but not me. And she would say, oh, you're not that exceptional, actually. You're not that exceptional. You're actually also part of that reality, just as everyone else is. You're actually also unobstructed from knowing reality because you live in it. Suzuki Roshi, speaking of Suzuki Roshi, who was the founder of San Francisco Zen Center, he used to say, it's actually I believe, in Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, he says, the world is its own magic. He's very aware of that with the fireflies yesterday. The world is its own magic. And what does that mean? The way that I interpret that is Roshi pointing at that if you're looking for something special, if you're looking for something wondrous, it's right here in this life. It's right here in this life. And this is why, again, trying to bring it all back to the big picture of Buddhism, this is why the body, the mind, everything that you encounter can be brought onto the path. And it is our deep willingness to attend to these things, no matter how difficult or wondrous they feel, that is what makes it into the path of awakening, as opposed to the path of destruction and more suffering. So the sutta goes on, the sutta from the connected discourses, the sutta goes on. So the Buddha, having said this, he says, okay, so so too, the number of things, the things which I have directly known, but not expounded to you, that which I have directly known, but not expounded to you, is more numerous than the things that I have expounded. Because these things that I haven't expounded are unbeneficial, they don't pertain to the spiritual life, they don't lead to peace and to enlightenment. And then he goes on to say, and what have I expounded? What are the few things? What are the small leaves, the small, simple set of things that he has expounded? He says, I have expounded, this is dukkha, sometimes translated as suffering, but more generally speaking, unsatisfactoriness. This is the origin of unsatisfactoriness. This is the cessation of unsatisfactoriness. And this is the way leading to the cessation of unsatisfactoriness. And why have I expounded this? Asked the Buddha rhetorically. Because it is beneficial. It is the basis for a spiritual life. It is what leads to peace, direct knowledge, enlightenment. These simple things, what are they? They're called the Four Noble Truths. And why are they noble? Because they lead to a noble life, a noble living of this body and mind as wisdom, as meditation, as ethics. So bringing this deep receptivity to the lived experience. Again, whether it's wondrous and marvelous and magical in some way, or whether it's suffering and difficulty, it will still reveal its truths to us if we are simply willing to observe them, be with them. So we begin with attention to the body. We begin with attention to the lived experience of this body, teaching us the nature of reality. And from there, we also experience the mind. We also experience how it is that consciousness has a role in all experience, in everything that we know. And when we observe those things, I would suggest what comes forth is that this thing is truly informed by this world. We are both impacting and impacted by this world. That is inescapable truth. That is part of that reality that needs to unfold in order for us to find our harmony with it. That observing that again and again, training ourselves to know that that is literally how we are built as human beings. That is how we are built. Which brings to mind another sutta as well, although the number isn't immediately apparent. But there is this beautiful other sutta in which the Buddha speaks about even unwholesome states of mind. He says, as long as we apply frequent, wise attention to them, then they become part of the path. So again, back to this idea of non-obstruction. You cannot be obstructed from the truth. Even the things you think of as delusion, if they are known as delusion, then they cease to be delusion. If they are known truly, how they work, why they're here, when they're gone, that is the path. That is the truth. That is the first noble truth right there. You see? So I hope that this sutta of the Singsapa leaves is one that's uplifting, that's encouraging, because what it says is you don't need to understand the entire cosmos. You just need to return again and again to this set of practices, this set of knowing the truths of your life. And that is already showing you non-obstruction, the fullness of your being as the fullness of all things. And thank you for your kind attention this evening. That's what I wanted to share.